What if Earth had rings, like Saturn? We've all seen the gorgeous images of Saturn, with its shimmering, icy bands stretching across space. But imagine looking up from Earth and seeing rings in the sky every single night. Not just a moon, not just stars, but massive glowing bands wrapping around the planet. Today on ThinkCosmos, we're diving into what life would be like if Earth had rings, how they'd form, how they'd look, and how they could change everything from weather to culture. Let's get into it. First, what are planetary rings, really? Saturn's rings are made up of billions of pieces of ice, rock, and dust. Some are the size of mountains. Others are as small as grains of sand. They orbit Saturn in incredibly thin, flat layers, some no more than 10 meters thick. Rings like these are usually formed from shattered moons, comets, or leftover material from the early days of a planet's formation. What if Earth had its own set of rings? Let's imagine Earth had rings made of ice and dust, just like Saturn. And let's place them in the same orientation as a flat disk orbiting Earth's equator. From space, Earth would look stunning, a glowing blue planet, wrapped in sweeping silver arcs. It would be one of the most breathtaking sights in the solar system. But what about from the ground? Here's where it gets interesting. If you lived near the equator, you might not see much at all. The rings would lie flat above you, edge on. They'd look like a thin, glowing line cutting across the sky. But the farther you move north or south, the more dramatic the view becomes. From places like New York, Rome, or Tokyo, the rings would stretch across the sky in giant, glowing arcs, visible day and night. Imagine sunsets painted with glowing bands of gold and ice. Imagine ancient civilizations using them to navigate or make calendars. Imagine religions and myths built around the rings of the sky. But rings wouldn't just be beautiful. They'd change Earth in surprising ways. For starters, shadows. Rings would cast shadows on Earth, especially during the day. In some regions, you'd see the sun flicker through gaps in the rings, creating soft patterns of light. In others, the rings could dim sunlight during certain times of year, cooling the climate slightly and altering seasonal weather patterns. Next, satellites. Today, our planet is surrounded by thousands of satellites, but massive rings would block or disrupt many of them. We'd have to redesign orbits and entire systems of communication to avoid collisions or interference. And then there's the moon. Earth's gravity and the moon's. Some scientists believe that having a massive moon like ours would actually make it harder to keep long-term rings stable. The moon could either disrupt them or eventually sweep them up and clear them out over time. So for Earth to have long-lasting rings, they'd need to be placed carefully, probably within the Roche limit, the zone where tidal forces prevent the material from forming into a moon. Still, short-lived or not, rings around Earth would change everything. From the way we launch rockets, to the way we farm crops, to the way we look at the sky. They'd become part of our identity. In art, in religion, in culture, we wouldn't just be Earthlings. We'd be ring-worlders. So, what if Earth had rings? We'd have a new world, with a very different sky. Thanks for watching ThinkCosmos. If this made you look at the night sky just a little differently, subscribe for more science stories powered by imagination, logic, and the universe itself. Until next time, keep wondering.